What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with some more news. It's time for Fastlane as the road to WrestleMania 37 hits its last pay-per-view pit stop. Join us now as we recap the pay-per-view and analyze the show for the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. We also have a breaking news story concerning WWE superstar Andrade. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. As always, we start off with the kickoff show as United States Champion Matt Riddle takes on Mustafa Ali. This is Mustafa's latest attempt to wrest the US title from the Ultimate Bro, and tonight Ali comes closer than ever. Things look bad for Riddle when Ali gets him in the Koji clutch, but in an amazing demonstration of strength, Riddle powerbombs his way out. They both battle on the turnbuckle until Riddle hits the Bro Derrick off the second rope for the pinfall. Matt Riddle retains. After the match, Ali berates T-Bar, Mace, Reckoning, and Slapjack, apparently feeling they are to blame for his loss. A sore loser. Reckoning walks out on Ali after hearing enough, followed by Slapjack. Ali runs down to T-Bar and Mace until they've had enough, chokeslamming him and exiting the ring. Rest in peace, Retribution. I would say I'm sad, but good riddance. Now we move on to the main show as it opens up with a Women's Tag Team Championship match as champions Jax and Shayna Baszler, who's with Reginald, take on Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks. There's tension on both teams, but the challengers coexist long enough to take the champions to the limit. Sasha locks the Banks statement on Shayna and Bianca Belair runs in to stop Nia Jax from breaking the hold. However, Nia shoves down Belair, sending her into Banks. The challengers argue, giving Baszler the opportunity to roll up Banks for the win. The champions retain. After the match, Banks badgers Bianca and the two argue, with Banks slapping the hell out of Belair, knocking her down to the mat and calling her a rookie before bailing out. After that, Elias and Jackson Riker are backstage with Shane McMahon, who is walking on a crutch. Elias says he wants to talk to Shane about performing at WrestleMania 37, but Shane seems more concerned whether he'll be able to wrestle Braun Strowman tonight. Next, we have the IC Championship match as champion Biggie takes on the Nigerian Prince Apollo Crews. Neither man holds back in this grudge match as they're each looking to punish their opponent before even thinking of ending the match. The match seems to end early when Crews counters a big ending into a small package, but Biggie somehow pins him. It's a confusing finish that appears to have been a blunder as the match ends in less than 6 minutes. Biggie retains, but Apollo Crews delivers a post-match beating to Biggie, hitting several Olympic slams as he tells Biggie this war is far from over. Definitely seemed like a blunder from this point of view. Then we get an Old Spice commercial backstage with Joe Average promoting the product while 24/7 champion R-Truth hides from Akira Tozawa. The usual 24/7 hijinks ensue as Average attacks R-Truth when he inadvertently reveals himself, covering him to win the title. However, R-Truth rolls up Average, regaining the belt. Elias is in the ring with Jackson Riker and Shane O'Mac, and Elias begins strumming his guitar, but Shane interrupts, telling Elias he'll be taking the place tonight against Braun Strowman. That match is up next as Braun Strowman manhandles Elias, with Elias's only strategy seeming to be rolling out of the ring. After dishing out more punishment, Strowman is distracted, allowing Elias to chop block the big man and head to the top rope for a flying elbow smash. The monster among men easily kicks out, however, and Braun repeatedly gains control and hits a running power slam for the win. We then get Shinsuke Nakamura versus Seth Rollins. Seth gets the early advantage, dominating Shinsuke and clearly looking to send a message to both Nakamura and Cesaro. However, when Rollins tries to apply the Cesaro swing to Shinsuke, Nakamura fights back, rallying against Rollins. It turns into a seesaw battle with plenty of near falls, but all it takes is one counter for Rollins to set up Shinsuke for the curb stomp, ending the match with a pin. Seth Rollins wins the match. Next up, we then get a no-holds-barred match between Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. Drew enters the Thunderdome sporting face paint that resembles Mel Gibson in Braveheart. The Scottish Warrior and the Celtic Warrior deliver in and out of the ring, pummeling each other as they seem intent on ending each other's career. Even at one point, Drew appears to be taking out Sheamus's eye with a kendo stick. Things only escalate from there with broken tables, broken machinery, broken screens. I'd be pissed if that was me on the screen. And likely some broken bones as Drew and Sheamus make sure this match lives up to its stipulation of no holds barred. Drew is finally able to finish the match when he hits the Future Shock on a piece of ringside desk, followed by a Claymore kick covering Sheamus for the 3 count. Then we get Randy Orton versus Alexa Bliss. Randy Orton suffers another bizarre coughing fit before Alexa Bliss enters the Thunderdome. Yep, it's more black goo. Orton demands Bliss come out and shouts that he's had enough games. Bliss shows up and puts Orton through a mystical match as she drops a lighting ring dangerously close to him, then shoots a fireball at the Viper. Now, we knew this wasn't going to be a wrestling clinic. A fire burns a hole in the ring and the Fiend emerges looking hideously scarred. Bliss shoves Orton into the Fiend, who hits the Sister Abigail, allowing Bliss to get the 1-2-3. Alexa Bliss and this new deadly Fiend stand tall over Orton. Now it's time for the main event, the Universal Championship match, as Roman Reigns takes on Daniel Bryan with Special Enforcer Edge. Bryan relies on his superior grappling skills to his advantage, targeting Reigns' arm with a number of holds. However, Reigns bides his time until he can utilize his power advantage, thrashing Bryan. Bryan inadvertently knocks the referee senseless, leading to Edge running in to officiate, and Roman and Daniel continue battling until Bryan locks in the yes lock. However, Jey Uso runs in, super kicking Edge and grabbing a chair. Uso attacks Bryan, but the challenger counters, grabbing the chair and laying Uso out. Bryan goes to clobber Roman with a chair, but Reigns ducks and Edge eats the chair instead. Superman punch by Roman, but Daniel counters a spear into a yes lock. Reigns fights, but his health meter is going down fast and he eventually taps. However, there's no one to notice, and when Edge recovers, he blasts Bryan with a chair and then attacks Reigns with it. Edge screams the Universal Championship is his before leaving as a fresh referee enters the ring. Roman finds the wherewithal to drape an arm on Bryan, stealing the win as Roman Reigns retains and Fastlane comes to a close. Well, that was a quick recap. What about the good, the bad, and the downright ugly? As always, we start off with the good as number 1, another solid opener. WWE knows how to choose strong matches to warm up the fans on the pre-show. While tonight's pre-show was dull compared to the past few pay-per-views, Matt Riddle vs Mustafa Ali was another strong start to the show, with both superstars showing why any match featuring them is guaranteed to be entertaining. Number 2, Shinsuke vs Seth are stellar. Did Shinsuke Nakamura and Seth Rollins save Fastlane? While that might be too strong of a statement, there's no question that the match washed the bad taste out of the fans' mouths after having to sit through the main show's first few miserable matches. As good as the Cesaro vs Seth feud is going to be, they should revisit Shinsuke and Seth at some point, as both men put on the best technical match of the night. Number 3, brutal is only the beginning. Tonight's no-holds-barred match lived up to its name, with Drew and Sheamus engaging in an all-out war that somehow topped their previous brawls. This match was Wrestlemania quality, with some great spots, including McIntyre hurling Sheamus into the LED boards and Sheamus delivering the white noise off the security barrier and putting Drew through an announce table. While Drew won the match, both men looked strong, and as mentioned in our past videos, Sheamus could come out of this feud with a solid spot in the upper card, or even the main event. Number 4, a fiendish homecoming. The Alexa Bliss vs Randy Orton showdown was everything the fans expected. An overbooked mess full of special effects that included Alexa Bliss using her supernatural powers to drop a lighting rig from the ceiling, narrowly missing Randy Orton and throwing a fireball at him. Of course, the only payoff the fans cared about was seeing the Fiend return, and let's face it, the WWE didn't disappoint, with the fire burning through the ring followed by a charbroiled hand grabbing Randy Orton. The Fiend returned looking extra crispy and more hideous than ever. Granted, the match was corny, but it gave the Fiend's fans everything they wanted, a fiendish homecoming and a setup for a final encounter between the Fiend and Randy Orton that can only be held on the grandest stage of them all. Just a side note, if Alexa Bliss can do all this stuff in a match, why doesn't she ever do it in a women's match? Anyway, number 5, a perfect main event. Tonight's Universal Championship match was easily the best booked match of Roman Reigns' Universal title run, with Daniel Bryan relying on his technical skills to keep Reigns at bay, and Reigns relying on his power to try and keep in the match. This match did everything it was supposed to do, show that Bryan has Reigns' number, continue the friction between Edge and Bryan, and hopefully set the stage up for a triple threat between Daniel Bryan, Edge, and Roman Reigns. After all, it was a bit of a screwy finish where Roman Reigns actually tapped out but nobody saw. The WWE has to book this match as it has the potential to be one of the greatest WrestleMania matches in the event's history. But that was the good. What about the bad? It's number 1, Retribution. Putting Retribution in the bad section of any video seems like low-hanging fruit at this point, but tonight's finish was a reminder of just how awful the WWE's wannabe rogue faction has been since their official debut. The group turning their back on Mustafa Ali was highly predictable, as was Mace and T-Bar's beatdown on Ali. At this point, the WWE should consider dropping the storyline and pretending it never happened, much like Raw Underground. Number 2, the women's tag team snoozer. It should go without saying that tonight's women's tag team match was a complete waste of time, as they could have easily have shown Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks ending their short-lived team at Elimination Chamber. Instead, they put both Belair and Banks at risk by having them face Nia Jax, as well as putting on a true snoozer of a match. Fastlane got off to an awful start with this match, one which belonged on SmackDown instead of a pay-per-view. Number 3, Riddle's wretched comedy. Matt Riddle may be a funny person, but no one can get any laughs out of the awful material the WWE is throwing at him. Yeah, somebody's actually getting paid for these scripts. But Riddle's backstage interaction with Shinsuke Nakamura, where he told Nakamura about his latest invention, a pimped out scooter, was a type of bad comedy that makes both Riddle and the WWE product look incredibly stupid. And Biggie vs Apollo Crews' flop finish. The Biggie vs Apollo feud has been superbly booked, and tonight's match looked to be a possible match of the night. Things started off strong with both men talking trash as they established why they were so intent on crushing each other. Biggie's intenseness is also always phenomenal. Biggie punished Crews, reminding the Prince of how he had his title shots, and now it was time for revenge. On the other hand, Crews was looking to prove himself at Biggie's expense and take the IC Championship in the process. Tragically, the match fell apart when Crews' pinfall attempt turned into a fiasco, with the WWE blundering the finish and ruining what should have been an excellent match. Now, there wasn't anything downright ugly, but Fastlane started off with 3 awful matches, with the pay-per-view in Fastlane to becoming one of the WWE's worst pay-per-views ever. Thankfully, Shinsuke vs Seth, Drew vs Sheamus, and of course the main event match restored balance to the Force. They made a serious error though starting off a main event on such a bad foot, especially for any new viewers who decided to try out the WWE product. Hopefully some of these viewers stuck around to see the better parts of the show, but what made Fastlane such a puzzling show was how it featured some of the best matches in recent memory, but also some of the worst. Tonight's pay-per-view showed that the WWE still has serious issues with maintaining a consistent level of quality, whether it's on television or pay-per-views. Now just before we wrap up the video, we've got a little bit of breaking news, as Andrade is indeed going. Now this breaking news is Andrade fired off the following tantalizing tweet today. Good news. Buenas noches. #tranquilo. #happy. As previously reported, Andrade requested his release from the WWE but was reportedly denied it. He acknowledged the request in a tweet earlier this week, but it seems from this tweet that they may have accepted it. But there you have it guys, our recap of 2021's Fastlane pay-per-view, including the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. What did you guys think of the pay-per-view? Let us know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.